All right. Welcome back. It's week 2 of Friends We Made podcast. I am Court. That's Tim. I almost said I was Tim. I don't know why I would say that. I am not Tim. I am Court. This is Tim. And this is just us talking about TV shows that we like to watch. We are not professionals at this at all, but we will be posting pretty consistently, hopefully, different shows as they come out. And if you enjoy it, like, comment, subscribe, do all that normal YouTube stuff. And we'll go from there. So, week 2 of House of the Dragon. And I say the best place to start is always at the beginning. And I was pretty surprised, I would say, to see the Game of Thrones theme song to start the whole thing off.
I was
What
I
you
was
think of
happily surprised to hear it. I wasn't so surprised, and I wasn't so happily surprised to see it.
and that's the thing, because I feel like with that theme song, it wasn't just a song; it was a whole concept of the way the videos are, or the way it's shot, where it goes on the map to where you're going in that episode. And I love that. Well, we're gonna be in Winterfell this week, and then we're gonna go down to King's Landing, and then we're gonna go see what's going on in the Riverlands, and then we're gonna jet across to wherever Daenerys is at in Essos. And this one, I mean, it was just like, I guess, that river of blood. I thought there might be fire because of the Targaryen words, blood and fire, and this being a Targaryen show. And I didn't hate it, but it's not as good.
I lost you. You paused for a second. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it. I don't know, when it started, I thought that like there were symbols at the very end. It was obviously the symbol of the Targaryens, but there are other symbols that I feel like maybe I just don't understand well enough. But I think it was telling a story just like the original one. It just wasn't as clear. But even the original one, at first, it wasn't as clear. As a book reader, it was a little more clear to me even. But definitely
Right.
as someone who just was watching it, you were just, it looked cool. But eventually, like you said, you could read what the episode was going to do based on that. And I feel like they probably did that. It's just not obvious enough yet.
That's
There
true.
were little symbols. They were like intersections, I should say. And the intersections were individually and unique. So I mean, something was happening with that. But
And the way the castles would come together too in the
yeah,
original one. That was also really cool. And I love most of the music in Game of Thrones. Like the song "The Faith of the Seven." Like I've literally like Googled like a orchestra playing that song because it's just an amazingly orchestrated song. And even like the videos online of people performing it's a Targaryen Reigns of Castamere.
yeah,
Like System of a Down performed that at one of their concerts. It's real. The music's really good. So I was wondering, like, how are they going to top that original theme song? And they didn't. And I'm okay with that because if you can't top it, just stick with what works. But it's really weird to see a show have the same theme song as the show that it spun off of.
yeah, definitely. I mean, couldn't think of another time that's happened. But I mean, I did hear it in the first episode. They didn't have an intro in the first
Right.
episode, but throughout the first episode, you could hear it in the background.
And I
You could
think
hear
the show
those like
started off
same.
with the music from like the Game of Thrones music that was kind of intercut with the Targaryen music that they would play in the original show whenever Daenerys was on. Because like all the houses, they had their own music that you would hear and associate with them because you see them on screen. But yeah, I thought that was really good. And then we go to the first scene with the crab feeder on that beach. And I swear, every time I see a horrible death on TV, I think at some point in human history, this has probably happened to someone. Like human history is so messed up, and it's just like that might be my new worst way that I would ever want to die. Like
Crab.
being crucified on a beach, waiting for the tide to come in and slowly drown me, and praying for that because I'm slowly being eaten to death by crabs. Like you're looking forward to that tide coming in and drowning you to put you out of your misery. And I was like, man, that shit looked brutal.
Yeah, I didn't even get that the tide was going to do a thorough enough job. I really took it as the crabs were going to take their time.
Yeah, I mean, that seems likely, but I feel like in order to get you to a point where the crabs would be getting to you, you need to be close enough that when that tide comes in, that you might drown. But I mean, if you don't drown from the crabs, that would be way worse. Did we lose you? You frozen?
Yeah, I lost you, but you're back.
Okay.
We're talking about the Tide.
Yeah, I think your connection. We got to work on that connection. I don't know. No, I was just saying you would be praying because of how close they were to the crowds. I think you have to be at a point where the Tide could get to you, or at least you'd be hoping for that because you're just trying to be put out of your misery. But then you go to the small council meeting next with Rhaenyra 6 months later, and I would say last episode when they were showing her as the cupbearer at the small council meeting, I thought that was cool because I feel like being the cupbearer to the king for a lot of people is a big honor, unless you're Lancel and the king's Robert, and then he just shits on you the whole time. But for like most people, being the cupbearer puts you in the room where all the decisions are being made. And it's kind of like when Jon Snow got made the steward for Jorah Mormont, and he was pissed off at first. And well, not Jorah.
No,
Jeor. Jeor Mormont?
Yeah. Is that right?
I think that's it. But he was pissed off at first, and Sam explains to him, well, no, you're going to be, they're grooming you for rule, you know. So I think there are certain people like Lancel, he's a Lannister, but he's not going to be Lord of Casterly Rock or anything. But being the cupbearer for the king and being the squire for a high knight, that's a big honor for him, and that can lead to him having a higher station in life that he might later get. But someone like Jaime Lannister, that would be a slight to Tywin. If you told him you're going to make his heir the king's cupbearer, you know, you would never do that. So I thought it was cool last week seeing Rhaenyra as the cupbearer, but now that she's the heir, you can't have the heir pouring the wine for the master of coin or something like that. So I think that kind of showed like, yeah, actually nothing's changed. No one respects you. You're the heir in name only, and you only got made the heir because Daemon pissed off his brother, and no one ever really expects you to rule anything or take your opinion seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's one or the other. It's like if you were the cupbearer before you were the heir, it was just because that was your duty. But if you were only the cupbearer after you were named the heir, it's so you can be in that room and so you can learn the politics. But the fact that your role didn't change, yeah, and you could tell. I mean, he didn't. I mean, they hadn't talked about it. Like, I don't know. Like, they fast forwarded 6 months, but we didn't miss anything.
Right.
You know, I thought that was kind of interesting. They even said it at least two. I think I might have caught a third time where they pretty early on said 6 months. So again, not necessarily holding our hands, but I definitely think that they, you know, they're writing bluntly when it comes to, you know, letting the audience know where they are. And the fact that, I mean, I can't think of anything we really missed that they didn't immediately catch us up on with a sentence or two. You know?
Right. Nothing's happened. No. And you really see when she gives her opinion on what they should do about the craft eater, everyone in the room is like, excuse me, why is that 15-year-old girl talking? like no one is giving her even the time of day, you know.
Yeah, they're surprised that she even talked. Like, it's almost like forgot she was there.
Right. Like they think she's like, they're treating her like she really is a servant and not the king's heir. And I mean, that scene, I feel like it did a lot with Lord Hightower. We're seeing a lot more from Hightower and his maneuverings. And I've seen people online, they're comparing him both to Littlefinger and to Tywin. And I see a lot more Littlefinger than Tywin in there. Because Tywin would never allow the craft eater to just be wreaking havoc in the free cities. Like, he would never just say, you know, every time Corlys brings it up, Hightower kind of, you know, turns this attention away from it or tries to like not push him into acting. And there's no way Tywin would stand for that for a second. Tywin would ride out there himself. And you can't have your trading routes being disrupted. Like, that would disrupt your entire economy if you can't trade with other lands. And I don't understand why Viserys doesn't see that. I mean, they're really winning in the fact that he's just a weak king, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, not only a weak king, but like, I mean, any political position could see that, you know, the trade routes are important. But I mean, this episode, I mean, not to jump to the end, but I mean, he's pretty much just completely shunning his master of the Navy and his trade routes, which, again, that's basically not even being a king. That's just economics 101. I mean, you got to have, you know, goods, an easy flow of goods. And if he's just shunning that, I don't know. It's just like he doesn't want the confrontation. I mean, that doesn't really speak to the kings of Westeros or to what do you call them?
Targaryens.
Yeah. So he's kind of out of place almost, which I guess is why we started the series with him, because he's
Right.
kind of.
And it was like, I was thinking to myself, it's like, well, they're really trying to show that like it's hard to be a good king and a good man, and like because he seems like a good guy. Like he loves his family. He's not like overly cruel. He's not in love with the power. He seems like a good person, but it's hard to be a good king, and maybe not, because I mean they said the king before him, Jaehaerys, ruled for 60 years, and it was a pretty much a prosperous time. But they don't make TV shows about 60 years of prosperous time.
Right.
You know, you guys see the TV show about when the guy who gets in there, he doesn't know what he's doing. And it just shows you having the ruler of this huge 7 nation land be based on a bloodline is a horrible way of doing it. Because sometimes it's going to be a weak king. Sometimes it's going to be a mad king. You know, maybe you'll get lucky and you'll have a good king, but there's no guarantees in that. You're just really at the mercy of whoever's next up.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, if the histories seem, if I'm reading the histories right, I mean, it's going to be Targaryens until the game.
Yeah, we got another 200 years.
Thrones, so 200 years going to happen between now and then. But I mean, it's 200 more years of Targaryens one way or the other, which is kind of, I don't say spoiler. I mean, it's kind of weird going into a new series knowing kind of the outcome in some ways. You know a lot of, you don't know what's going to happen, but you know a lot of what's not going to happen.
Right. I will say though, after Better Call Saul, I feel like they pulled it off, so I got some faith.
I haven't seen the latest season of that one, so.
Oh man,
I just watched it. It's on Netflix. I watch it when it comes on Netflix, so I'm on the.
Probably got like a year for that. It was good, but I feel like there was certainly Emmy bait in there at the end. Like, I won't give you a spoiler, but there were multiple episodes at the end that were just in black and white. And it was like, oh man, they're really trying to get like some cinematography awards. Like, I mean, they're shot great. Like they look super like cinematic, you know.
Well, black and white in that show and Breaking Bad usually meant in the future, didn't it?
Yeah.
So,
and I feel like the you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it. Their costume designer deserves an Emmy because there's like one suit and it's like, goddamn, even in black and white, that's a goddamn Saul Goodman suit. Like, how did they even pull that off? Like, how can I see the colors in black and white? I don't know how they pulled it off, but it was like, yeah, that's a Saul Goodman suit. But getting back to this, when the next scene when we see Rhaenyra goes to choose the new king on the King's Guard, like I said, I do know a little bit of the plot of this show, but very little of it. I don't have no idea what's going on with that guy, but I know he's going to be important because why they give us a scene of her choosing him. But
he was in it at the tournament too.
Yeah, and if you notice, when they have all the knights down there, he is the only one who doesn't have a banner or a squire.
Well, they say that in the tournament that he's like a very low house.
Yeah, he's a steward. His father's a steward.
There you go.
Which kind of makes sense to me for the King's Guard because he's not going to be able to inherit anything anyway. So why not? So why would you want to get someone who has something to inherit? Or if you have something to inherit, why would you want to be on the King's Guard? You know?
Yeah, you'd be a lot of second and third brothers. Is what you think.
Right. And so, like, I just noticed that, like, okay, so he's the only one out here. He has no banner on him. He has no sigil on him. He has no squire with him. But he's the only one who's ever fought in an actual battle. And I appreciated that Rhaenyra made the decision because of it, because it's showing she's actually smart. She's actually thinking about things. She seems like she's probably be a better ruler than her father would be.
One thing about that scene I thought was kind of not ironic, but just I thought was kind of strange writing is that, that was right after the scene you mentioned where she brought up the dragons, like what she would do. And they dismissed her. And that's kind of like the project they gave her. But then Hightower was there. It's like he dismissed her to go do some like trivial thing that he himself was going to go do.
That's actually really, a good point.
It seemed a little weird the way that happened because I expect to see do, but I didn't realize either way. It was just funny that like he dismissed her to go do that, like as an obvious like putting her off, and then he's there too.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Now that you mention it. Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even notice that. But I did know he was like selling her, oh, well, we should choose this house because, it's going to be important to us to political reasons. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, well, wouldn't it be also important to do what your master of ship wants when, the fleet is at stake? Like the richest person in the realm? Because like Corlys Velaryon is basically Tywin Lannister here. He's the richest guy in the kingdom, and you're just pissing him off left and right in this episode. And honestly, like, do you not worry about the king's safety if you're just going to pick his guard for a political reason? Like, she was absolutely right to pick the person that she thought had actually seen battle, because that's who you want protecting you. And I'm sure the fact that he was the most good-looking guy there was probably played a role in her decision.
I mean, I feel like Hightower in general is, as of now, it's only been 2 episodes, but not. I mean, he's the hardest to read. Like, I thought he was a coward. Then he shows up. Then he goes to Dragon's Reach. I thought he was, I don't know. It's just, I mean, he kind of put his daughter out there, but then also, like, seems like he. I don't know.
Well, I have some opinions about him going to Dragonstone too when we get to that part.
Yeah,
but before that,
he's hard to read. Like, so even I didn't expect to see him there after he dismissed her, but then when he did get there, the fact that he had like some political reasons to put people in there, I feel like he's got a lot going on behind the scenes. Like I was saying, they kind of holding our hand for certain things. I have a feeling that they're not holding our hands with him. We're supposed to understand that as a Hightower, that he's got things going on that we don't know about. Because, like you said, what he's doing doesn't make sense, but he's doing it for a reason. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he's plotting. He's Littlefinger. He has balls in the air. Like, that's what they always said about Littlefinger. No one knows what Littlefinger's game he's playing. Like, he's doing all kind of shit behind the scenes. I mean,
right. He became the master of coin because that's where the power was at the time. I have a feeling that in this situation where the king is as weak as he is, the hand is the spot he wants to be in. I think if he wanted to be master coin, that's where he'd be.
I was thinking I would love to see how he got to that point, because it seems like Viserys really does trust him. Like, how long have these guys known each other? Like,
that's what I said. He's the mystery right now because we really don't know that. It doesn't seem like that would be the case, but
right. Like, Tywin and Aerys were like best friends before Aerys became king, and Ned and Robert were best friends. So that's the person that you want to be your hand. Someone that you really trust. Like, how did he get into that position? I wonder.
I mean, it seems that's the relationship they have. It really does, but I mean, it's too early to tell, really. I mean,
and so then we move on to by far the creepiest scene we've ever had in Game of Thrones, where Corlys is trying to marry off his 12-year-old daughter. And so I was looking at the ages, and it seems like it's hard to get a pinpoint on the ages because they've changed the ages in the show of everything. I think they said that, like, in the source material, Viserys is, I want to say, around in his late 20s at this point. But the actor who plays him is 50 years old, and he looks like he's 50 years old. And then that little girl, they said she's 12. The actress they got looked like she was freaking 9 or something. Like, she looked.
I'm curious to see how old she is. I almost want to look it up right now because, I mean, they always, especially the original Game of Thrones, like, you read the books and it's a bunch of 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. And then the actors and actresses are not only in their, like, late teens, but they're like old teens looking. They're mature for, like, teens.
Right,
but
because
they went the other direction with this. There's no way she was much older than 12, and I think she was younger, like you said. I mean, they really wanted to.
Either she was younger or they got someone who looked young because they really wanted to hammer that home, this age difference. And Daenerys was 13 when she married Drogo. And I think they had to have an older actor do that because Drogo had sex with her. Like, they couldn't get a 13-year-old to do that scene. That would not have, no one would have stood for that shit. So they had to make her like 18-ish in the show. But yeah, just the one thing I don't like that I don't think they did very well is show the relationship between Alicent and Viserys. I think what they're obviously trying to show is that obviously her father's pushing her on him, and she doesn't really want it, but also isn't going to push back because as a woman, she knows her role was always going to be to marry whoever her father matched her up with. So, being matched up with the king, that's a pretty good deal for her. Like, she's going to upgrade in life. So I think she's torn on that a little bit, but she does have some ambition, I think. But I just wish the scenes between them, we would see like stronger conversations, like him actually connecting with her. Because I think they were showing when he was talking to, I think her name was Teyana, she's a 12-year-old girl. She just wants to talk about him riding the dragon. Like, what the hell are you going to talk to a 12-year-old girl about?
Right. And he asked, like, what did your mom say? I mean, it's immediately like, don't worry, you have a few years till anything's going to happen, kind of thing. And it's like, I mean, she's just doing what she's told, and I mean, it's hard to even like talk about this shit. Like, I mean, they did a good job of making it awkward. Like they really did. Like even like the other girl. I mean, the other girl's like still awkward, but like it almost makes it look like perfectly normal. And I feel like that's another,
because she's like a 19-year-old in real life playing a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
So when you see her and him, it's like, well, it's still fucking awkward, but like it's not.
Well, like you said, they have a conversation. They talk to each other. They both like get along and stuff. It's, I don't know.
And also in the source material, she is older. She's not the same age as Rhaenyra, and they're not like friends. I don't think in the source material.
I don't know that they said her age in this, did they? I feel like 15 has been thrown out, but I don't think it was her. I think it was. Yeah,
I think people just assume that that's around her age because she's good friends with her, but she could be 18 and they could still be good friends. So I did like the scene where Rhaenyra is confronts Rhaenys, Princess Rhaenys, the queen who never was, and it's like, how do you feel about this? And she's like, well, I don't like it, but what are we gonna do about it? We're women in this world. I love the line where she was like, the man of the realm spurred having a woman as their ruler. And she's like, no, they spurred having you as their ruler.
Yeah.
And, because, I mean, she's right. And I think they're trying to show us probably that she would have been a better ruler than Viserys. Like, if they would have made her queen, she would probably be doing a better job than Viserys. I think they're just trying to hammer that home, that he's not an effective leader. The only reason he got it was because he's a man. He wasn't even, his father wasn't the oldest son. Like there were other people a lot ahead of him. They all just either died or were a woman. And so it came to him. And a lot of people were going to end up dying down the road because we got the wrong king. And also, if you watch the HBO lore, there's the belief that if you sit the Iron Throne and it cuts you, that's the throne telling you that you're not fit to be king. And that thing is destroying him.
I mean, I think that's the whole idea. It's like, the fact that you can sit there, it's almost kind of Wheel of Time back to that, but like where you can just be calm at all times and where you can just sit there and stay stoic even when things are happening. He doesn't do that. He lashes out. He gets excited. He
can't worms.
That was a good scene between the two of them. I definitely think, I don't know. I feel like she had a point as far as like at the end where she's just saying that, not just the point where she said the men already spoke, but just that in general, they're not going to let it happen. I just feel like that's just like a real fear you would have, as a 15-year-old first female in line, So whether it's true or not, she definitely got into her head a little bit there.
And here's the thing that's like the most uncomfortable feeling that I have for this whole thing is he should marry Laena. That is the smart match. Like, that fixes the situation because they said people swore fealty to Rhaena. They wanted her to be queen. And that will heal the old wounds if her daughter ends up being queen. And that will tie their houses together. Her dad's the richest person in the realm. He has the biggest navy. Like there is no reason why he should marry Alicent Hightower except for her dad is pushing her on him when he's clearly vulnerable. And like the Alicent Hightower match makes absolutely no sense on paper at all.
It's already his hand. They're already, like we talked about, they're already about as close as they can be. So it's not joining anything.
Exactly. Right. It makes no sense at all. Laena would be like the smart match. And I mean,
I don't really understand his thinking other than he just does what he wants because he's alienating his daughter. He's alienating his brother. He's not helping anybody but himself, which is not what a king
is. We haven't gotten to that last scene yet, but it's also like, if you're going to do that, you got to let the people know before.
Yeah. Because even Hightower seems surprised.
Right. And I feel like obviously she had to know because otherwise, she at a small council meeting.
Yeah.
Like Alicent had to know.
She kind of seemed surprised too, but I read that wrong, but yeah, I didn't think about that.
But like
she didn't seem like.
The craziest part is he was surprised that his daughter was pissed off. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna marry your best friend. I thought you would be okay with that. Why? Like, do you not understand anything about the way the world works? What daughter wants their best friend to marry their father?
I mean, I think he doesn't. Like, I mean, seriously, when has he shown that he knows how anything works?
That was crazy.
Like,
That was
even like I said
crazy.
last episode with him exaggerating, I mean, not that what his brother said was right at the toast, but like the way he handled that was like, I
That
mean,
we
there were
don't know
other
actually happened.
situations. What's up?
The toast that we don't know
Yeah,
actually
you don't
happened.
have exactly. So
We didn't
exactly.
see
So I
it. We
mean,
just heard it from Hightower.
so there's other things he's done that he could have gotten upset about, you know. So he
Right.
reacts unpredictably and unkingly.
Speaking of Daemon, I like him. Like going into this, I heard, oh, Daemon Targaryen, he's basically like an adult version of like Joffrey or Ramsay, just unstable, does whatever he wants. And it's like, I don't see that at all. Like Ramsay and Joffrey were psychopaths. They didn't care about anyone but themselves. I think Daemon clearly loves his mistress. He loves his brother. He loves his niece. Like he cares about his family. I mean, the whole scene with the gold cloaks, that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's the part of him that's not as easy to kind of figure out. I mean, because he enjoyed that, you know, and
Yeah.
they enjoy him and he enjoys them, like the company. I mean, so there's a dark side of him for sure. And I mean, there's got to be, I mean, for the character, but he's definitely no Joffrey and he's definitely no Ramsay.
No, not even close to Ramsay.
No.
And the thing is, that was another scene where I did not trust Hightower for a moment when Viserys is like, I'm going to go to Dragonstone. And he's like, no, I can't allow that. And Viserys, he just backs down. It was like, what do you mean
Yeah,
you can't
it was
allow
over.
it?
Yeah, it was over.
Yeah, like, no, because there's no way that Daemon was going to attack Viserys. He just wanted to see him and talk to him. And he knew that stealing the egg and leaving the note that he left was going to provoke him. And that he was trying to provoke him to come there and talk to him. And I just feel like Hightower does not want the two of them talking, especially if he's not there. He wants to keep himself firmly in between them. So he's like, no, I'll go and I'll do it. And it's like, what are you going to do? He has a dragon. Like, I've heard people say, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Don't bring knights to a dragon fight.
Yeah, no, don't bring. I mean, there's nothing to compete. Like
what the fuck was he going to do? Just go there and die? Like, Rhaenyra saved his life when she showed up. And I mean, that was a pretty badass scene for her because basically he's squatting in her castle. Like when you get named the heir is the lord or lady, I guess, of Dragonstone. So being named the heir made her princess of Dragonstone. That's her castle. And he went there to provoke Viserys. Like basically taking Dragonstone is outright in defiance of what has been ordered. That's why Hightower was saying, you're an open rebellion. This is basically treason by you taking this castle. And I mean, it was kind of crazy because I feel like Daemon didn't really have a plan. It was like, oh, I know I'll get Viserys here. And then, step 1, collect underpants. Step 3, profit. I don't know what he thought was going to happen once Viserys
he's definitely not the man with the plan.
Right. And then once she showed up, he just like tosses the egg and leaves. It's like, okay.
Yeah, well, because she called his bluff.
Right, because he's like, yeah, I'm the heir. You going to kill me?
Yeah.
Obviously, he wasn't.
Well, and even what was I gonna say? Oh, even just the like the egg stealing. It's like he took the castle, and that didn't work. So he's like, all right, what else can I do to provoke him?
He's been there for 6 months.
Yeah, he's like, what else can I do to provoke him? Like, I'll say I'm going to marry this lady, which I think he did that out of actual love. But then he's like, so I'll steal this egg. So he literally crept in. Like, I'd like to see the behind the scenes of that one where he's just creeping through the dragon's lair stealing eggs.
Right. It was like he didn't just take any egg. He took the specific one that they put in Balon's crib. Like, he knew how to really get under their skin.
And like I said, then when he didn't get what he wanted, Hightower threw a wrench in it. And then with her showing up, I mean, his plan was, I mean, that was it. He had nothing. Like,
yeah.
But
and I mean, I like the scene with him and the mistress where she was like, yo, don't bring me into your stupid games. Like, I'm not a Targaryen. They can easily kill me.
Nah.
Like, and it's crazy because
she must have seen the first show because she knows.
Right. And she apparently speaks Valyrian. Because Rhaenyra was speaking Valyrian when she was talking to him, and she understood what she said because she heard that shit and she walked away. And I was like, oh, I guess she's.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I definitely was like a subtitled moment. So I didn't realize that. But yeah, and she's supposed to be like a runaway who's been sold time and time again. So that's interesting. More to her.
Yeah. So I'm getting like some Missandei vibes.
Yeah.
And this is crazy. This is like a little off subject. I've been looking at seeing people talk about this online, and I haven't heard anyone say this. but something that would come out of left field that I think would be like the what the fuck moment that no one would see coming, but actually would make sense in universe. What if for some reason we see Melisandre? Because she is very, very old. Like we could see the same actress, we could see Melisandre at the same age for some reason, talking about the Lord of Light at some point in the series, and it would not be out of bounds. Like 170 years before this happened, she is basically old enough that would not be anything crazy. You're frozen again. You're lucky. You're like deep in thought.
I didn't realize she was that old.
Well, I don't think they actually established how old she is, but for her
she died.
But for her to be like 300 years old, which is about how old she would need to be alive during this time and be alive in the actual show, I don't think that's out of bounds or like necessarily crazy.
No.
So I was like, I haven't heard anyone talk about that, but I feel like they probably wouldn't do that. Like, I don't know how the Lord of Light would work into the story, but that would just be interesting to me.
Yeah. Even like the White Walkers. I mean, the fact, I think he mentioned the Wall, which is the first really, I don't know. I'd have to watch the originals again or read the books to know, like, I know they've stayed in guard for a long time, but the fact that it's not even a big deal right now, because it was a big deal then.
Oh no, the Wall goes way back. Like that goes back to like the Age of Legends. So like that was like thousands of years before that.
I feel like in Game of Thrones it was like everyone treated it like winter's coming. Like I guess because we were in the Stark's world, maybe that's the only difference. But like I feel now it's like they don't even like care. Like it's like,
see, no, I feel like if we go to the Wall, it'll be much better than it was during the original Game of Thrones, because they only had 3 castles manned out of all 19 castles. I feel like now this is probably a time where all 19 of those castles are manned, and like it actually probably still means something to be in the Night's Watch, but it's not like a great honor the way like Jon Snow thought it was, because when he mentioned the Wall, he was like, I'm not going to send my brother to the Wall. Like, is that what you wanted me to do?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was what it was. It was like somewhere to send people to die.
Right.
I mean,
this is where we're going to send you so we can forget about you.
But even if it is as old as you're saying, like 300 years or 200 years, which is what it is, that's not a big difference. I feel like it's still probably not much. Even if they do have a few more castles, like, I don't know. I guess that's just maybe even for another conversation. But just in general, like, I don't know the history of the Wall well enough to know, like, when was it ever, like, frequently besieged by White Walkers?
No, that would have been, like, literally thousands of years in the past. Yeah, because that was the first... That was the first prequel that HBO greenlit. It was a show about the Long Night, which I thought was a horrible idea. Honestly, I didn't want to see that at all, really, but I would have watched it. And they actually filmed a pilot that was going to star Naomi Watts, and then the executives of HBO saw it and they just shelved it. They're like, "No, we're going to do the Targaryen one instead." And George R.R. Martin, I think at some point he said the events of the Long Night are as far removed from the beginning of the Game of Thrones as Noah's Ark is from us. Like, that's like literally legends. Like,
it's legends, yeah. I mean, that's why I say that even like so 200 years in the Wall wouldn't make that much of a difference, because I mean at this point the Wall is there for like Wilders, right? What they call them? Wilders. It's like it's Wilders. It's not even about the Walkers aren't even known.
Channel without going to the White Tower. That's what a Wilder is. Yeah. What's up?
I kept losing. I lost you again. I'm gonna plug my computer in next time. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I don't know. It's definitely more like I said, I mean, the White Walkers are like just not even a thing. So I don't know, because we know that they're not going to attack for 200 years. I feel like they're going to have to leave the Wall alone.
But going back to the end of last week's episode, when he talks about it, like that was something that was new information that George R. Martin has confirmed, that apparently Aegon, when he conquered Westeros, it's because he had a dream about the White Walkers, and he knew that the Targaryens needed to conquer Westeros, otherwise the White Walkers would take over the entire world. It'd be the end of the world of man. So, right. I mean, I feel like that explains a lot. Like when you go back and look at when he conquered, he basically, if you bent the knee to him, he did not take anything from you. Like, those guys were all kings, basically. But the Stark, he was known as the king who knelt. Like, he heard about what Aegon had done to all the other armies, and he didn't want to subject his men to being burnt alive by dragons for his own pride, so he knelt to him. And some people are saying, well, maybe Aegon talked to him about the danger of the White Walkers in the dream he had. Because if anyone was going to be receptive to it, it would have been the Lord of Winterfell or the King of the North, you know. So, I mean, that's an interesting story. Like, certainly for another time, because there's a lot there. I mean,
yeah, I mean, just in general, I feel like there might need to be like a mid-season, lore episode, because there's a lot there. Like, winter is coming. Is that their, that was something that early on in the series they were quizzing somebody on, probably Sansa. But like, we got to like kind of know what everybody's house was about. And at this point, I don't know if that's still the case. That
was brand. No, I would be interested to see some of the other families that we've seen, because in the end of the first episode we saw the Lord Baratheon of Storm's End bowing, giving fealty. We saw Lord Stark from Winterfell giving fealty, and whenever this civil war between the Targaryens does eventually start, like, whose side is everyone on? Like, who is the Lannister? The war of the West. Like, whose side are they going to take in that war? And I feel like that's where all the politics and intrigue are going to come in, where the show is going to expand out just from like these few characters that we're seeing, and it's going to be all about like the politicking of building up your loyalty behind who's going to support you and who's going to support the other side of your family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested to see where it goes, because whereas the other show started with no dragons and everybody was kind of weakened from war, and everybody was under a very kind of peacetime situation where they're starting with dragons right away. They're starting with one powerful house that rules everything. So I mean, to be able to challenge that, like, I know it's going to be a civil war. That's the only way they can do that. So the dragons are fighting the dragons. But for the other houses to really have a say in that is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only reason that the Targaryen house falls 200 years later is because of what's going to happen right now. If they didn't, just like they said in the first episode, the only thing that can tear the house of the dragon down is itself.
Yeah, I mean, part of that's going to be the fact that every time a dragon dies, that's one less nuke in your arsenal. Right. I mean, Targaryens are not that powerful without the dragons. I mean, that's what puts them in power. And I mean, by the time Baratheon's in charge, there's no more dragons. So I don't know when the last dragon fell, but I mean,
after the Civil War, dragons are still hatching and being born, but they're way smaller. Like, they're not ones you can ride anymore. And that just makes a huge difference. But getting back to the end of the episode, so he does the stupid, that makes the worst decision possible. He spurs Corlys Velaryon in front of the entire small council. So now he's lost like probably his most powerful ally, and now Corlys is going to Daemon, and I don't know where that's going to go. I mean, obviously, with the next week's episode, they're showing that, you see the people on the beach and someone yells dragon. So seems like Daemon's going to go deal with the craft eater, which I don't understand why you wouldn't do that to begin with. Like, he's like, oh, I don't want a war. You're the only one with dragons.
Yeah, like, you don't want a war? Like
that's like going back into medieval times and just having a fleet of F-15s. Like, okay, well, I got fighter jets, so I don't give a fuck how many knights you guys have. I can fly.
It all rings back to him just not understanding about the king. He thinks peace is like what matters most because his predecessor had so much peace. But I mean, peace comes at a cost, unfortunately. And that's just the truth of like, our world and their world. Like, they don't have peace now. Somebody's attacking you and feeding people to crabs. I mean, that's not peace. Just because you don't declare war doesn't mean it's peace. Like,
and the fact that they're doing it means they already think you're weak.
Yeah, exactly. They don't
know
expect
you have dragons.
Yeah, if they knew you were going to send a dragon to them, they wouldn't do it in the first place. Like,
right.
Yeah, that person, I feel like, is the first kind of intriguing outside of the immediate group I've seen, like whoever's feeding them, because again, he's got to know dragons are coming.
Right.
So what's the plan?
Or be incredibly confident for some reason that they're not.
Yeah, but I didn't get that. I got the challenging vibe from this individual, and they just kind of did the zoom in of him at the end there, and just the audacity of the acts you're committing, you're challenging. You're not just hoping that they don't show up. So either this person's provoking or they're being backed by somebody who's deliberately poking, because they're not just, again, you just steal the money and run. If that was your goal, they're provoking though. So we're going to see why.
We're waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I just don't know why you would do that.
Yeah. Unless you got a plan. Again, that's the dragons start dying. And it's not just the dragons killing each other, I would think. Remember those big giant crossbows that were dragon slayers that we saw at the end of Game of Thrones? I mean,
don't remind me of that shit.
I forget about most of the end of that shit. I just kind of randomly had a moment.
Daenerys Targaryen had 3 dragons and she didn't attack King's Landing. Like, that made no sense at all when they get in the beginning of season 7 when they don't attack King's Landing because Tyrion is talking her out of it, which makes 0 sense because the last time Tyrion was in King's Landing was at his trial when they convicted him of killing Joffrey, and he gave that speech about how he wished he could kill each and every one of them. He doesn't give a fuck about those people. They didn't want to make Tyrion into the character that we see in the books after he kills his father, because that Tyrion is not a good guy.
No.
Like Tyrion and Dance of Dragons, like he's pretty disturbed. He's
I mean, he should be.
Some demons.
What has he been through?
What's up?
I said, what had he been through? He'd been through being a freak his whole life and
being hated,
disfigured, and tried to. I mean, it was realistic. This Tyrion was a little too.
In the show, like they fell in love with the character, and they didn't want to make him into like a bad guy and have him doing bad things. And it's like, well, if there's anything the Game of Thrones has taught us, a character can do bad things and doesn't necessarily make him a bad person, because you see, what their internal monologue. The only character in the books who I still hated once I started reading their chapters was Cersei. Right. Like I think I hated Cersei more when I started reading Cersei's chapters. Right. See the shit she's thinking about. No, she just sucks. She's crazy. She's an alcoholic. She's all the worst parts of all her family members.
She really is. And she makes them all worse for it.
But arguably, Tyrion would be the best heir to Tywin. But I think Cersei would be a better heir than Jaime. But she was a woman, so it's just like, no, Jaime is Jaime. She was born before him. She was older than Jaime. Like, technically, she should have been the heir. And if they would have given that to her from a young child, then she didn't have to grow up knowing that, we're just going to marry you off to someone, then, who knows what the kind of person she could have been.
Yeah, she was.
And she wanted to marry a
Rhaegar. I'm hoping you get from this show. Whatever we get action-wise, I hope for that same characters. I hope that, because as bad as the show's got, the character growth and like the character strength, I mean, that comes from his books though. So I don't know if we're gonna get that. That makes me a little.
Well, he's involved with this. That's why I'm confident. He was involved with Game of Thrones, the TV show, in the beginning, and though they were going off books, they still had him there to give his input and to bounce the ideas off of him. So, you saw some of that character growth in the original show that you saw in the books. Here, he's involved in the show, and there's really no books. There's source material, but like I said, it's a history book. You're not getting the inner monologues, the thoughts.
Right.
Seeing how people interact with each other. But I think they can do that since George R. R. Martin is helping write the show, and he wrote TV shows before he started writing novels. I actually saw an interview. He was talking about
his novel was written for.
Yeah, I saw an interview he did where he was talking about a sci-fi book that he wrote a while back before he started writing Game of Thrones, and it seemed like really interesting. I want to look it up now. It's about telepathy, and he was saying, people think about telepathy and they think about it's like having a conversation with someone without talking to them. But like, what if you could really look inside someone's mind? You can see all their memories, their hopes, their fears, their embarrassments, their worst moments, their best moments. Like, would it make you be more empathetic towards other humans, or would it just make you hate everyone because you could see like the worst of all the people around you? And I was like, I feel like George R. R. Martin could write a story like that really well.
Yeah.
And it won an award. It was like the best sci-fi book that came out that year. So I was like, I need to look into that book because I that might be something worth reading.
I mean, it'd probably give you good insight on his characters. to
That's
write a
true.
book like that first, and then to go into a book about politics and what people are thinking on the inside and what their motivations really are and what they're saying versus what they're doing. I mean, I feel like that's probably what drove him to be so political in his writing.
Right. All right, you have any final thoughts on the episode, or did you watch the on next week's what's coming up?
No, I did not. I will say I did see something online that I didn't notice was the which I've been a big fan of, the knife that the king carries, and apparently that's the same knife
That Arya
that's
uses?
used in Game of Thrones. Yeah, that's I did not realize that, and I don't remember it looking so dashing in Game of Thrones. But I've been appreciating that he's had that. And I could tell it was Valyrian steel just from the fact that the king was carrying it, and that it was something he always brought with him. But I thought that was cool that somehow that thing's going to make it through. And
Well, I think the story to that is it gets passed down from Targaryen king to Targaryen king, along with the story about the dream that Aegon had about the White Walkers and the Long Night. But then obviously Robert kills Rhaegar on the Triton, and then Jaime kills the Mad King. So that dagger was just probably around King's Landing, and that's how it fell into like someone like Littlefinger's hands, because like no one knew the significance of it.
And he might have really.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, if anyone, it'd be Littlefinger or Varys. Varys needs a crazy amount. But yeah, so I'm interested to see next week's episode. I'm not one of the kind of people like really looks into like, oh, the next episode and then makes predictions, because I feel like those predictions pretty much never come true. They only show you certain points and they put the voiceovers on there. Like it's designed to intrigue you, but to not spoil anything. So
is it like after the episode? Because I didn't even see that.
I think so. Did you watch it on HBO Max?
Yeah. I usually shut it off right after the credits roll though. And
yeah, I think it's after the credits. And I feel like I did watch the behind the scenes interviews that they like to do at the end of every episode with like the writers, but I didn't really pay attention because I don't remember them. I just kind of know that I saw them now. But yeah, so I'm excited about that, and I think Andor's coming out real soon.
Yeah, it should be the 5th or something. It should be next week.
Next week, and Lord of the Rings, which
nice.
I'm excited to watch. I know nothing about Lord of the Rings.
I started rewatching. I mean, I've seen them all once when I was probably a teenager, and I started watching the first one, and it's a long one.
Yeah, if you start watching them all like right now, you might be done with them by the time the show comes out.
That's what I thought. And I watched like maybe 30 minutes, and I watched another like 20 minutes, and I got like 4 hours left in the first one. I think I accidentally hit the like extended version because it's like literally like 4 hours left in that shit. So
I know eventually like trees start walking around and shit.
I haven't gotten that far. I'm still in the village. What do they call it? The Shire.
The Shire.
So, we're still in the Shire. So
the Shire. At some point, I think one of those hobbits like plays defensive end for Notre Dame or something.
Yeah, no, I've heard about that. And what was it? I recognized him from something else recently too. I didn't realize he was in. Oh, he was in a terrible movie, 50 First Dates.
Oh, yeah, I hate that movie.
I was like, why does he seem so familiar?
I hate that movie. He's like, oh, this is right. That was right.
If I ever see him in person, that's what I'm going to say. I'm like, weren't you in 50 First Dates?
And that's like in real time where I start to notice, oh, yeah, I hate Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah,
as a kid, it's like, oh, Adam Sandler movies, they're all so great. But then there's like a time like, okay, Little Nicky, that sucked.
No,
and then there's like a few more, it's like, that sucks. And it's like, by the time I get the 50 First Dates, it's like, damn, I haven't seen an Adam Sandler movie I liked since like The Waterboy. And that wasn't even that good.
No,
it was still the same old Adam Sandler shit. He's doing funny voices.
The only one that really aged well with me was The Wedding Singer.
I mean, Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore still classics.
They're good. They're definitely good. And I liked Happy Gilmore more. Now it's definitely Billy Madison, but The Wedding Singer is just like a great movie. I still love that movie.
Yeah. And that might be my last. The Wedding Singer might be the last Adam Sandler movie that I was like, I really liked. But apparently he's making good movies now.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I haven't seen them, but
my roommate watched the one about where he's a basketball scout. He said it was really good.
Oh yeah, Kara watched that. She said it was good. So I watch a whole lot of movies, so I'm having to like fit in this House of the Dragons, and it's gonna be interesting now with 3 shows to watch.
Yeah.
Are we gonna do all 3, or we want to do 2 for now and then add another one once it's over? Or I mean, I don't know how.
People will just have to tune in and see how our lives are going.
I could out of an hour, we'd have to make it like 30 minutes each or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have less to say about Andor and Lord of the Rings, and or just because there's just not a lot to say about Star Wars shows in general, in my opinion. You know, it's just
I feel we could make that like a joint show, like
we could do that.
Like 20 and 20, because to me they're similar. Like as far as they got, like, Game of Thrones is definitely a little different. It's a little more modern, but those two are like, just.
And we definitely know more about Game of Thrones. We know more about Game of Thrones. We know more about God, what's the one we were talking about earlier?
Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time. I don't know why I can't think of Wheel of Time. So yeah, we got Wheel of Time to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. So
did you finish? You finished Lords of Chaos?
I did. It was good ending.
Miles Wells.
It was a good ending. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that's a good.
That was crazy, man. I just when Mazrim Tom told them they were gonna bow or be bout, it's like, now fuck these guys to die. Sick of that.
Yeah, that shit was good.
All right. But, all right, thanks. If you watch this, thanks for watching. We will be, as I stated, back next week. We got a lot more stuff coming. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
All right. See you next time.